Welcome to Small Town Big Life Podcast, coming at you from the tool shed behind Grace Fellowship Church in Avis. Today we are going to talk about UFOs and Bigfoot and SETI and all things that people like to talk about when they're at cookouts or at 2:30 in the morning at a bar or restaurant. I guess. I don't know. I just pulled that out of my hat. We're getting started. We have Kevin Johnson and Ben Carson with us today, and I'm really excited to talk about this. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good?
Excited.
Excited? There's the music, and Jackie's flying the plane. So I don't even know where to begin with such a huge subject and such a fun subject with so many varied opinions. Now, Kevin, we talked about SETI. I know you're particularly interested in that, right? The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I know in OSU, where I'm from, Columbus, we've got the satellites, and we're still looking for Mars to attack. So,
correct. That's imminent.
So, what are your thoughts on SETI? Because I know we've had some pretty extensive conversations on it.
What are my thoughts? That's it's a pretty wide open question.
Is it a waste of time?
Well, that all comes down to all kinds of things, like the Drake equation. I think that was right before my birth, if I remember. Frank Drake tried to quantify the probability of finding extraterrestrial intelligence, and it was all to get the scientific community started on a real search.
Right.
So that's where it all started. Started with star formation, how many per year. How many stars have planets? How many planets are in the habitable zone? How many of those have life? How many have intelligent life?
So for those who may not have heard of the Drake equation, I'm going to try to put it on the lower shelf.
Okay.
It's basically an equation that establishes the probability of all the factors being right for life to exist somewhere. Correct? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And
all right.
The problem was back then we had virtually no idea of any of the terms. It's like other than star formation, they had some idea of how many stars per year were created in the Milky Way. But then everything else was a pure guess, which we've slowly been getting closer to,
right,
as more and more research is done over the years. But my biggest issue with SETI comes down to abiogenesis, which is life out of nothing.
Right. Which is, God speaking life into existence. Well, is that kind of, what do you mean?
No, taking God out of it and looking at it as a purely scientific natural phenomenon.
Okay. Oh, so you agree or disagree with that?
I don't think it's likely.
Okay.
And that comes down to molecular biology and just the complexity of like a single cell organism and all of the factors that had to go into that becoming life. And it's a reach to think that is common.
Yeah, yeah.
But on the other hand, we just don't know. And there's active research into abiogenesis to see if, you put a bunch of chemicals together, do you get life out of it? And we've got a long way to go. They have found that, back in 1953, you had the first experiment, Miller-Urey. Everybody knows about that one, where they put a bunch of chemicals in.
I have no idea about that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about that. I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's like, I missed that day in school. Hold on.
Okay.
Who's everybody?
Come on, Sheldon.
Sorry.
No.
It is a well-known experiment back in, I'm pretty sure it was 1953, because there was a lot of science that happened in 1953, where they put a bunch of chemicals together, and which they guessed were on the early Earth. And then they subjected it to electricity and various things just to see what would come out of it. And they did get the basic building blocks of amino acids. So, but can you get from an amino acid to a protein?
Yeah.
That is
when we talk about the petri dish type stuff.
Yeah.
How can we create life and something that basically can walk upright and think for itself and be self-aware. I love that stuff, but I start to think about the bigger picture of things, like deep abstract thoughts, spirituality, these other things. And I'm thinking
we haven't even gotten to that.
We
point
can't
yet.
even. Yeah, that's it. So Ben, let me ask you: do you pack your lunch or drive to work? I'm just no. Do you? SETI, is this everything Kevin just said? All this exploration, all this intense study on the topic. Is it a waste of time? Should we be more concerned about what's going on here? And if they come, they come. Or should we? Surely you've heard of SETI, right?
Yeah.
And you know they spend a lot of money listening to, listening to outer space radio signals, looking for radio signals, right? Intelligent radio. So what do you think?
Well, I just read an article last week that I don't know who published it, but they said we need to stop sending our signal into space because we're not going to like who answers it or who finds it.
That is a pretty deep thought. Yeah.
But to me, I think it's kind of a waste of time, really.
Yeah. Because I think if we reach someone who's capable of physically reaching us, they're going to be so far beyond what we can. It's like you said, the first statement you made, the first analogy I thought of was like if someone invites you to a party and you think it's okay, but then you get there and people are smoking crack and shooting guns and setting things on fire, you're going to go, this isn't the party for me. And that's basically extraterrestrial life.
Right.
They go, let's go see what these people are like. And they're going to get here and look from above and go, you know what? Not so much. Yeah, not so much.
No.
What do you think, Jackie?
I believe in extraterrestrial life. I believe that there's other things out there, but I don't know that we necessarily need to have an entire field of array of dishes listening for one of them to burp. You know what I mean? I just feel like that money could be used to feed starving children or, work on different things domestically.
Well, I think it's like anything else. I think, Ben put some things in perspective by saying sending our signal out there. From that point of view, I agree with that. But I think it's like anything in life. Moderation's the key. Mm-hmm. And I think listening for activity, if the spending is realistic, is not a bad idea. But because a lot of people that listen to this, or a lot of people in general, believe that we should always move forward with science and examination, and I'm on board with that as well. But I'm kind of in the middle of keep doing it, and what you said, focus on things here more at home. But Kevin, where do you stand on it, whether or not how much time and resources is too much or enough to pour into this? Given Ben's opening line about sending a signal out into space, factoring that in.
Well, I don't think it's a tremendous amount of money that's spent. I don't know offhand, but my T-shirt cost $10 billion. So
right.
I don't think SETI has even a fraction of that amount. So,
well,
go ahead.
You know Bob? Did you ever hear of Bob Lazar?
I've heard the name.
Oh, you've heard the name.
I don't know who it is.
Okay.
Well, there's a Netflix documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I saw it.
And Bob Lazar came out and said that he worked at Roswell.
Area 51, actually.
Was hired to reverse engineer the spacecraft that they have.
Yeah.
So if they have spacecraft, then why are they spending money to try to contact?
Well, because because who's trying to SETI is operating under the assumption that there isn't nothing, because there isn't any life extraterrestrial. There is no, because it's not been proven that the government has saucers. I mean, Bob Lazar says that. A lot of people attack Bob Lazar's credibility and say no.
Right.
And the majority of people do not. The majority of people agree that he's legit. And so they're not going to admit to the public that they have a saucer, because if they did, SETI would probably change the gears on how they're doing things. I mean, that's my opinion. And to just real quick, Bob Lazar, claims he worked at Area 51 and worked on reverse engineering these saucers. And he's a very controversial guy. He's interesting to listen to talk, because the things he says make sense scientifically, and he doesn't seem like a person who's interested in bringing attention to himself, and he goes through long periods of time without granting interviews or anything because he doesn't want to be bothered. And some people, like I said, some people believe he's legit, and that they did capture saucers at Roswell, and they they're looking at them and they reverse engineered them and all this kind of stuff. And some people think not so much. And anyway,
it's on Netflix. You have to look that.
Yeah,
up.
you should look. You really should watch it. It's because it's not long. It's interesting. It gives you some insight. He's been on Joe Rogan and other shows. I mean, more recently in the past couple of years, he's been on Joe Rogan.
I am watching something in my spare time. It's I think it's Unsolved Mysteries with Lawrence Fishburne. I think they have a series about Roswell, and so.
Okay, I've been watching one. I didn't think it was Lawrence Fishburne, but the Netflix remake of Unsolved Mysteries has 3 seasons, and they are done very well.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you seen them?
Yeah,
they're good.
Yeah.
And is that Lawrence? Is that the same one?
I don't know.
I don't know.
You've seen them, right?
I've seen them, and I can't. I've got so many different Netflix documentaries going in my head right now.
We could actually do a whole podcast just talking about Roswell, because I know I can ramble on about a lot of things because I'm a pastor, but I got a lot to say about Roswell. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, when it comes to SETI, you just mentioned you're a pastor. What are the theological implications of success? What does it mean?
Okay, so UFOs and flying saucers and aliens and all that kind of stuff.
Well, just
they're not inconsistent if they exist.
Right.
It's not inconsistent with the Bible, because the Bible says God created everything. And if they're out there, that's part of everything. I mean, there's stuff in the bottom of the ocean we don't know about and we'll never find out about because we didn't look for it. And God still created it. The problem with people not believing in God when it comes to this stuff is the non-Christians and the people that don't understand the depths of God tend to create this cartoon comic book looking God in their head, guy sitting on the cloud throwing lightning bolts. So they dismiss things that are, out in the universe and far beyond. But I think they exist. So I think something exists. Something exists, whether it's interdimensional, whether it is from other planets, whether they're angels or demons or aliens. All these things can be discussed and debated. But I believe there's something. There's more intelligence. There's more life. I think there's things in this room that we can't see. Jesus Christ and Einstein effectively said the same thing. They asked Jesus, where is your kingdom? And he said, the kingdom of heaven is in your midst. Now people say, well, he was talking about himself. Well, he could have been talking about a lot of things. And Einstein said, in another dimension, a freight train could be coming through this room right now. I believe they're both right. And so theologically, I believe searching for SETI is not something that's like, in the medieval times where they would kill scientists for looking for answers.
Right.
I think that's wrong. I think you should continually look for answers. All of it is God's blueprints, and there's nothing wrong with looking at Dad's blueprints. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that.
They killed Bruno just for suggesting the Earth wasn't the center of everything.
I know. Well, that's because it took the church. It took power and authority from the church, and they didn't want to be challenged. And you gotta chime in.
No.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. I didn't know if you were gonna. Now, Ben, when I ask you, okay. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. When I talked to you about doing the podcast, I said something about, we're going to talk about, SETI and UFO and Bigfoots, and you kind of real quickly go, oh yeah, I got a couple stories. You said something like that, and I thought, oh, you're one of those.
Oh.
So was your stories UFO related or Bigfoot related?
Not directly me.
Right. It's always another guy, isn't it? It was a friend of mine.
On the UFO side, just years ago, my dad was out back planting corn or something, and he shut the tractor off and he was walking in. And I remember him telling me this story that he heard something over his head, and he described it as a cigar-shaped red craft. And he said it was...
Wow, this is your dad?
Yeah. He said it was lower than a normal... It was higher than a normal airplane, but lower than a passenger. And he said it just sat there for a little bit and then just instantly disappeared. And he said, I have no idea what that was. I've never seen anything like it.
How old were you?
12, maybe.
Yeah.
When he
So,
told
I
me
mean,
this.
did he, because it sounds like you were like, he was somewhat dismissive about it. Was he like, oh, this is a life-changing event? Or was he like, oh, well?
No, I remember he just, after the fact, probably a year after the fact, he brought it up that he saw this walking in to the house one night. So.
That qualifies as a UFO because U means unidentified.
Unidentified,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
He said, I don't know what it was. I just never saw anything like it before. So.
Oh, man. That's good. I want to see one. I've seen things. Well, I'm a skeptic about pretty much everything because usually, it's when I look into things, they're not what they appear to be, which is the same reason I'm a Christian, because of the overwhelming proof and evidence. Because I'm a skeptic, I need proof to believe something. And when it comes to, it's not that I don't believe in UFOs. What I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is things that I've seen that I could be tempted to go, oh, I reason it out and go, no, that's not a UFO. So, I mean, but that's just me personally. You look like you were going to say something. Have you had an experience?
No.
No, me either. Have you? You ever seen a UFO?
Not a UFO, but I just feel like, anything's possible. I mean,
Yeah. I do too, but it's okay. I believe that of all the stuff we hear about, that maybe 3% of it is legit. So my interest lies in finding out where that 3% is.
see, I'm the exact opposite. I think 97% of it is legit.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Some of it's just so hard to believe, and some of it's so easily explained.
I mean, I've seen ghosts. I believe there probably is some kind of Bigfoot, some kind of just big hairy thing we haven't identified yet. Like you said about the creatures in the ocean we haven't identified yet. The phosphorescent creatures in the ocean. I just said that wrong. Phosphorescent.
I know that word is not a commonly used word. I know the glow in the dark ones. They're in the ocean, or
Yeah.
kids are that way if they live close to a nuclear power plant.
Exactly.
Some kids
3
glow in
Mile
the dark.
Island. But I just feel like it's presumptuous to think that, if God did make everything, well, maybe not that thing.
Yeah, but
You know what I mean?
yeah, but hear me out. When I say 3%, think about the thousands and tens of thousands of incidents and reports over the past 100 years. So 3% is a massive amount.
Okay.
Of it's just I believe a lot of people hoax. I believe a lot of people make things up, and I believe a lot of people. And here's the big one: misidentify.
I don't.
And
I think people want to see things, and that's why they misidentify.
Bingo.
Because Elvis is dead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
He is.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
And people see him in diners all the time, and people see Hitler in diners all the time.
And there's a name. I forget what the word is. There's a name for that when you want to see something so badly that you're predisposed to forming a memory.
Yeah.
That's in hindsight bias.
There's people.
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. And
yeah.
there's people that are, they want to see a UFO so badly that, they see a couple weird airplane lights and, we're being invaded.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of us three, Ben, well, you're the only one that knows someone that obviously your dad. So I'm sure you believed him. I mean, it was your dad.
Yeah, and he wasn't telling me it was a alien craft. He just said,
Sure.
I don't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Never saw it before.
Right.
It's the leap of unidentified to identifying it as an alien spacecraft. I mean,
Yeah, and that's a
people
big
can
one.
see things that are unidentified, and they're unidentified. I mean, they can have explanations, but if no one takes the time to look at the explanation or find it, it remains an unidentified flying object, which I think I mentioned. They've renamed them UAPs because UFO has a negative connotation.
Yeah, and that's just, I know, I don't, that whole unidentified aerial phenomena. Well,
yes, and that's legitimate scientists.
Well,
who
now it's
look
ATIP.
into- well,
Now it's
ATIP.
Yeah, it's I can't forget. I forget what the acronym stands for.
ATIB?
ATIP. It's Aerial Threat Identification Program. ATIP. That's the Pentagon's government. Yeah, Aerial Threat Identification Program. I think that's it. So instead of saying UFO investigation, they don't, because UFO's been around so long now. They don't want to sound like
They're dismissed if they say UFO.
They're separating.
There's legitimate efforts to identify unidentified flying.
And Luis
phenomenon.
Elizondo was the head of it. He claims. So, just briefly, we'll go around the table. Roswell, without letting it dominate our entire conversation. Did the government recover a crashed alien craft and then change the story, whisk it away, and keep it in hiding somewhere? Do you believe that?
No.
Okay. Ben, do you believe that?
No.
Jackie?
Yes.
Okay. I don't believe it.
Well, let me ask this question.
Yeah.
Didn't the Air Force do Project Blue Book? Wasn't that their
That was a
project?
smokescreen, and they hired Hynek from Ohio State to come in and dismiss all the cases of UFOs. But the deeper he got into it, the more he realized there is something here, and so he changed directions. But Blue Book was, they claimed it was to investigate, but it was really to go out and tell people they're wackos and they're imagining things. So it was a smokescreen, and then when Hynek separated himself from them, said, I'm not going to lie anymore because there is something going on here, that's when it kind of crumbled. But yeah, Blue Book was that.
Sanctioned by the Air Force.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I used to believe Roswell, and the more, when I examine something, I try to examine both sides of it instead of just the side that I want to be true, because I do want it to be true. Who doesn't want to think that we have an alien recovered in it? I mean, man, that's cool. And I used to read everything that was in favor of that. And then I started reading and researching the other parts of it, and I'm like, this is getting harder to believe for me because for variable reasons. And I promised we weren't going to dominate the podcast on this, but I'm sure everybody has something to say about, especially Jackie. Jackie, you said you do believe it. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and support your position.
I'm gonna sound like a conspiracy theorist here, but the government hides a lot of stuff from the average American person.
Totally agree.
And politicians lie every single day. So who's to say that we haven't already come up with the technology that we see in movies about phasers and teleportation and all this other stuff? Who knows? We may have it already in a lab with the stealth bombers, and maybe one of them turns invisible. I don't know.
Well,
I have some insight.
Go ahead. Go right
Okay.
ahead. Kevin worked for, you did.
Yes, I did.
You worked for NASA.
Briefly, yes.
Yeah, but anyway, go ahead.
But I did have top secret clearances, and for most of my career. So I know how inefficient the government works. So,
Right.
From the inside, I've seen it. So if they had stuff that was like, anyway.
It would be hard to hide.
Especially from people like developing things. I just don't see them having these secret places where they're so much more advanced than the typical program.
Well, I can answer that. I mean, this is the answer to the people who believe it. Okay.
Yeah.
And Russo's book, he was one of the generals that was involved at the time, but who says, "Oh yeah, this all happened," and here's the way he explains it: everything was compartmental, put into little boxes and separated for folks.
That's right.
And compartmentalized. Anyway, to different people. So, and what they did was they used the private sector. Like they found, this is what he's claiming, things like fiber optics. So they sent them to different, like Lucent Technologies or Bigelow Aerospace or somebody said, analyze this, let us know what you come up with and see what kind of stuff. They don't tell them it's from an alien craft or any of that. They tell them it's foreign technology. Mm-hmm. They tell them they've acquired foreign technology and they're studying it. So they give it to different people in the private sector so they don't have to spend government money, so they don't have to get permission, they don't have to answer to higher ups. Now, these are the things that are claimed. I'm with you. I think the number of people involved, I'm sorry, but people cannot keep their mouths shut. And we have Bob Lazar, who came out and said, yeah, I was there. But, I'm with you. And I think the government has an advantage when the world or the public thinks that they have a saucer or an alien, because it's, psychological warfare. If your enemy thinks you have information that they don't have, you are more powerful, because information is power. And if people think you have information, you go, I don't have it. And they're like, I know you have it. I don't have it. And you have power over them because you have information, even if it's only perceived by them. So whether the government does or doesn't have it, it's to their advantage for people to think, for the public and the world to think that they have it, because it works. It works for them, even if it's not true. And if it is true, it works for them because they have it. And I've given lots of thought to the stories and the investigations and the things people say, and it's now I'm not really like pounding my chest on this and saying it's not true. I'm not totally driven and wouldn't debate someone, but the standing at the grill, having iced tea and talking about a conversation, my position is, I kind of don't think it happened, but I don't believe strong. Jackie's position, I'm like, I get that too. I can see it through that lens as well. So.
Well, I read the book Skunk Works.
Yeah.
Oh, I read
What is that?
Years ago. It was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but it was about the development of the stealth
technology?
Stealth technology.
The F-117.
And that was done at Roswell, I believe.
No, it was done in Burbank, California.
Okay. They didn't fly out of Roswell.
Okay, we got an insider with us. Dude had top
They
secret.
may have tested it there. I don't remember. But
I think that's where. When I read that, I thought, is that a coincidence that it's Roswell, or is that just their top secret base?
it's.
I don't know.
It's very, very isolated, so they can fly things and not be too concerned about people seeing them.
Test things out in the desert. Yeah.
Yeah.
To address your statement saying how ineffective they are at many things, the government, and Jackie's statement about how they keep secrets, I think both of you are correct on that. You're right; they can't do a good job, and she's right. There's tons of stuff kept from us, and I don't want to sound like a weirdo. This is going to not be a popular thing to say, but I think some things need to be kept from the public.
No, I do too.
But I don't think it's because of the same reasons. I don't think the people would go into a panic. Because I heard an old man, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Russo from Roswell. When he was really old, he wasn't going to be around much longer. I mean, he was, breaking down. And one thing he said that resonated with me, and I thought he's so right, is he said, when you tell people, we don't want you to know the truth about aliens because the world will go into a panic and they can't handle it. He goes, that's nonsense. He said, the world has seen starvation, nuclear war, the Holocaust. He goes, they can handle it. He goes, they're not that stupid to where they're going to just lose their minds. And he said, give people some credit. And I thought to myself, he's right. I mean, if my religious views aren't going to change, nothing in my life, I'm not going to go home and become a survivalist and start loading all my rounds up and hoarding food if they say, hey, there's extraterrestrials. I think people, in fact, I think it would do the opposite. I think people may unite a little more. There are going to be some lines of separation, but as a species, I think we may come together and realize we should have been loving each other all along in the first place. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my take on it. What do you think would happen what do you think would happen, Kevin, if the government, all the governments in the world said, hey, listen, they're real, and brace yourself because our communication with them is going to increase, and that's all they said. They said, soon we're going to have something televised, and just so we're letting you know, get ready. What would the world do?
I don't think a lot would change. I mean, people would live their lives until something dramatic happened, like we were attacked.
Did you see Mars Attacks?
Oh.
Because it's a comedy, but it has
awful.
I saw Independence Day.
Okay, Mars Attacks is a parody film of that, calling back to the 50s, but the premise, whether it's comical or not, I mean, it is a comedy. I personally love it because she's right. It's really stupid, but that's why but that was the point. That they did it that way intentionally too.
Yeah.
But the idea that they come pretending they're friends, just like in the Twilight Zone, and then we realize they're not our friends. I mean, they're here because if their intelligence is superior for us, like we may not be able to trick one another. Like when the guy down the street tries to get a little tricky with you on something, you're like, this guy ain't being straight with me. But if their intelligence is that far beyond ours, they'll be able to trick us. You think life would just go on as normal and it would be?
Yeah, I don't think people would overreact.
Ben, what say you?
I don't think a lot would change unless, like Kevin said, they attacked or something. But
right.
What are you going to do?
I think they find. What do you think?
I think that the average person's life wouldn't change, but then all the generals and everything would be all geared up with the briefcase with the button.
Yeah.
Just waiting for some perceived threat.
If there is some intelligent, yeah, man.
I'd be happy I live where I do, not in the city.
How about it?
No doubt. Well, there's the question still remains of, that's if they're aliens from outer space. And then there's people that think they're demons or angels. And I know that there are beings that are interdimensional that are demons and angels and all kinds of other things. And that's almost another conversation. But for the point of UFOs and aliens, do you have an opinion on what you think? And I'm talking about the ones we talk about. What we see, the crafts and abductions. What you know about, like if someone says, do you think those are from another planet or another dimension, or do you think they're demons? What do you have a strong opinion on that?
I do not. I have to see it to believe it, guy.
I am too.
So I don't totally discount it, but I don't say, "Ooh, that's what that is."
But don't you ever just privately think to yourself, you know what? I bet those things are, I don't know, from another planet. And they've conquered space travel, and they know how to. Or you don't even think about that. You're like, well, we'll just see what happens.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Kevin? What do you have first of all, if you think they're real, secondly, what are they? Do you have an opinion on that?
My opinion is that they might be real, but the chances of them interacting with us in this specific time is very, very unlikely. And I don't want to get into too much physics about relativity and time, but, we live in a time cone where the further away you get, there are just limits.
Yeah, but
the only way it would be probable to interact with some alien species is if they somehow develop faster than light travel.
Based on what you know that people have reported, is your assessment, hey, these things are good or these things are evil?
I would say that they're not true, that they're...
So you don't even believe they exist?
No.
Okay. So you're just like aliens and all that bunch of hogwash.
Right.
Okay.
So what are the videos that Navy fighters take?
I think those are bogus. I've seen...
Bogus?
I've watched two scientists go through and debunk all three of them, and I'm like, oh wow, it totally sucked the winds out of the sails for all of them. And they explained the physics of the camera angle where something was moving, and the lights, and the camera that was used to film them, and they went through everything, and I'm like, this is totally logical. So because I bought into those for years, and then they don't. Things that suck the wind out of your sails don't get ratings. So you don't see it a lot on TV shows and on YouTube because people don't watch it. And they want to see the ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
Those are the videos people want to watch. You put the one that say Santa Claus isn't real. People are like, I want to watch that.
Yeah.
So you look like you were getting ready to say something.
Nope.
Okay, so basically you're saying, hey, something's going on.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
There's too many sightings. You think, what is it?
Uh-huh.
You know, like my dad. What was that?
My wife
could have
thinks
been
they're
explained.
like demons. I think something's going on. I think forces that interact with us are primarily evil. But when you examine the behavior of what they do, I mean, if you have to hide and do stuff in the dark and do it at night, and you do things to people's bodies without their permission, and you're evasive, and there's nothing on there that says that that's good to me and that you have good intentions. So regardless of what people believe, let's say Kevin's right and they don't exist. Let's say that they do exist. The idea that anyone would do something and hide it from you and have to be evasive about it and do things to you and violate you tells you the intentions aren't in your best interest, in my opinion. You think they're real, don't you?
I think they're real, but I do agree with something that Kevin said, that if aliens would drop out of the ceiling right now, there is no way we would be able to figure out how to communicate with them unless they were on such a higher intelligence level than we are, and they knew English, or they knew some kind of pantomime-y.
But more than likely, if they were that far advanced, we would be nothing but cockroaches.
Why would they bother?
They wouldn't even try.
Exactly.
And that's my last point. If it's an advanced intelligence from another planet and they're that advanced, that's my assessment as well. Why would they be interested in talking to us? That'd be like you walking through the zoo and stopping where the macaque monkeys are and saying, you know what? I'm going to spend some time here, and I'm going to really try to have a meaningful conversation. You're like, look, they're monkeys. Just look at them and walk.
Yeah, keep going.
And keep going. I mean, that would be their attitude. Look at these guys; they're dangerous. And
So
it's the equivalent of us looking at monkeys fling their poo.
Yeah, I mean, but maybe that's what it is. When we do see these things shooting across the sky, we're just in their flight pattern. We're right here where we are. We're in the flight pattern for going to D.C. because I used to be a flight attendant, and we used to go right over Lock Haven to get down to D.C. So what if we're just
We're in their flight pattern.
in a galactic flight pattern, and they're just cruising over us going, oh, hey, there's that crazy planet. Hey, guys.
The alien kids are getting the keys to the saucer when Dad's asleep. Well, let's go to Earth, man.
Yeah, man. Let's
Dad
do a
won't-
flyby.
Were you at Earth again? I found cow guts on the saucer.
Yeah.
No, you're lying. I told you not to go there. It's dangerous. You can't trust them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah, Dad, we built a little. Yeah, we've got an experiment going on there.
Well, I do have one more thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
Just from the theological standpoint. While I don't think any other intelligent life exists, it seems like an incredible waste for God to create a universe the size that it is without anything else in it.
I want to address that. Keep going.
So, I'm kind of conflicted into why I don't believe, but it just seems like
I used to think
must be something out there somewhere because once you get to a certain level, we can't communicate with it. In fact, I said this once to someone who got highly offended, like, well, God might have multiple experiments, kind of referring to us as an experiment, and they got really offended. It's like, well, that's not what I mean. It doesn't change anything about our theology.
right.
But
I know what you mean.
An infinite God in an almost infinite universe, where we can't be the only thing he's doing. He is an infinite God.
What? Yeah.
Before you go,
Yeah.
somebody wrote a book called Ezekiel's Spacecraft,
Okay.
and it's based on Ezekiel chapter 1.
Right, where he gives all the descriptions about the wheels and the wheels and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, the UFO, the Bible's one of the greatest UFO books of all time. I mean, there's a UFO. I mean, there's a lot of things in there, but the Bible identifies these things. Now, I want to talk about what you said because a lot of people think that, and I used to think that. But here's the thing: it's your perception when you say a waste of space, because your perception, or people who agree with that, is that if there's not something that's like us out there and capable of thought, self-awareness, intelligent, able to create, able to dominate their environment, so on and so forth, just for a quick description, then it's a waste of space. But to God, other life we may not be the only thing that's important and necessary for. He doesn't have to make a bunch just like us, because he made a bunch of different versions of us here already. So for us to say, well, there has to be something I can communicate, I can look into its eyes, I can wave to it, I can do something with, and if it's not there, then all that is wasted. I mean, see, I don't, because from God's perspective, he may not feel that way. People say, well, we're alone. I don't know who said this. It said the greatest thought and the most terrifying thought is that we are alone. Mm-hmm. And I thought, yeah, that's true, because the most terrifying thought is either way. I mean, because if we meet them, who knows what's going to happen? And if they're not there, that's sad because they're not there. But just because there isn't something that we deem somewhere on our level in terms of being able to see and communicate with,
right,
is if it's not there, it's a waste of time. I don't agree, because the idea is that we're alone, but we're not alone. Just because the other things in the universe aren't like us doesn't mean we're alone.
It's awfully presumptuous of us to think, well, there can't be anything out there as cool as us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. That's
Exactly.
kind of the easy way to put it. Yeah, you're right. And so,
We've been wrong about that every time we've had that, like when Earth was the center of everything.
Exactly.
that's right. Yep.
Yeah, and then our solar system was the center of everything, and oops, we're not even the center of our galaxy. And then our galaxy is before they knew what a galaxy was, that's all there was. And then they figure out that there are a trillion galaxies. And so, we're always being put in our place, so to speak.
I mean, it could be that we are, in the perspective of things, we're a petri dish in the galaxy. But, what's out there? Who knows? We don't know. We're not on the level to know.
I know. I totally agree. So, see, we got look at our list here. Do you believe in UFOs? What are they? Ever had an experience? Is the government hiding info? Are most reports legit? And SETI. And then I have same questions for Bigfoot. Well, obviously not all the same. Now, Bigfoot for me is a fun subject.
Oh boy.
And it's because the older I get, the more careful I am with what I say, because there are people that had experiences, and sometimes you don't know they're in the room, and you find out later, I didn't appreciate the way you was talking about me. I did have an experience, and I'm gonna bust you in the mouth. I mean, I don't know.
I know somebody who he holds public office. When he was running for public office, when he told me that Bigfoots are real, he's seen them.
He saw more than one?
No, he didn't say he saw more than one. But where he grew up,
right,
which was right over this mountain, he said, I saw Bigfoot. So did my dad. He said, we've seen it together. And I said, how much would your political opponent pay me for this information if I pass it? And he said, it's true. I'll stand by that till I die. He said, I've seen him.
What was that noise?
I don't know.
I heard a noise that sounded like, okay. I thought somebody just tried. I was looking around to see, did somebody just, because Ben, you leaned a little bit when you said that.
No, I'm just shuffling.
Okay. Chair. I'm sorry.
I was really hoping at that moment that I had a banjo sound effect, but I
that would have been great. Am I like a fourth grader or what? All right, get back to what you. So he's running. He saw him.
He holds public office still, and he's absolutely will not back down from that story. And another stupid story is we have a scrap guy that comes into the farm and picks up scrap.
Okay,
and he was telling me that back in the 80s, his brother dressed up as Bigfoot and ran across Interstate 80.
Oh,
some fun.
That's great.
And somebody pulled over and shot at him.
Proof! Finally, we got proof!
Wow.
And later, he went and looked in a trailer in the kitchen window.
Yeah.
A lady came out and started beating him with a broom.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be terrified to dress up as Bigfoot because everybody wants to bag one. And that's just dumb. So have you ever seen anything?
No.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
I'm dying to hear. I'm dying. I can't wait to hear Kevin's take on this stuff because you're going to go full blown Sheldon on Bigfoot time, aren't you?
Oh, if you want me to.
No. Well.
So yeah, it's interesting how we have like 4K video and you have like trail cams practically everywhere, but every sighting and video of Bigfoot is this grainy footage of
That's his
low
biggest power, disabling the focus of cameras.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So yeah, his mental abilities to know that trail cams and video cameras are around, and he can disable them.
The best footage we got was Patterson.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah, they really invested a lot of time into that recently. Have you seen the new footage of the Patterson film? Is it Patterson Gimlin or whatever? They, in essence, they fixed it. So you know how the camera's shaking? So they use technology, all this computer technology to center it and still it and keep the footage still. And so it's she just let me know how much time there's. And it's pretty cool. So I don't. Go ahead.
I love there was a Progressive insurance commercial where Flo is sitting on the log with Bigfoot, and he's talking about. Have you seen it?
No.
It's really great. She's sitting there, and he's just talking about how all these new technologies, and nobody wants to take his picture anymore. And then they show people taking selfies, and he's trying to get in the background.
That's good.
And
I haven't seen that one, and I like Flo.
And she's like, "Well, it's just we bundle our insurance, so it just makes it so easy, Bigfoot." And he's like, "What did you call me?" And she's like, "Bigfoot." And he's like, "My name's Dave."
Like it's just some ugly dude.
Yeah, yeah.
She got a DUI and didn't have insurance.
Really?
For not having insurance. It was like 2 years ago. Anyway.
Irony.
Continue.
Continue. So the other point to make is that there can't be just one.
Exactly.
There has just to perpetuate the species. There has to be a couple hundred at least, and when you get a community or a population, you almost are inadvertently going to run into a dead body of one somewhere.
Well, not according to people who believe they're interdimensional.
Oh, well, that explains
now,
that.
there's a lot of people that, there's going to be people that watch this and get mad. They're going to be upset. Yeah. And I have to be fair. I know there are people who experience things and see things. I've seen and experienced things that are strange. And I think a lot of people have. And they're things I don't talk about. So I know that there are people out there who have had experiences. And I don't want to disrespect them. But by and large, they also have to be respectful of the people who find it hard to believe. Like when I tell somebody something happened and they don't believe me, sometimes I think, I don't blame you, I wouldn't believe it either, but it happened. And I think it's healthy for people to be like that because that there are people that think they're interdimensional. They come in and out of I guess they have access to this technology, but yet they have to build stuff with sticks and they stink, but they don't believe in showers and hygiene, but they have saucers and can travel through wormholes. But so I don't get that. And other people think aliens, they're like pets for aliens. They drop them off here. Other people think that they walk through time doorways. They're different. They're from either the future or the past, and we encounter them for a few moments and then they disappear. And that's something, to me, it makes more sense. I'm sorry, this is going to sound outlandish, that something goes through a real time portal and pops in and pops out. That makes more sense to me than a wood ape that has lived under our noses for centuries and we can't find the skeletons of. That is a harder sell for me than it is to think something pops in and out of a different dimension. And a lot of people think, well, then, dude, you're off the hook because that's stupid. But it's easier for me to believe that.
No, that works for me too. I'm good with that.
Well, that makes more sense because there is no physical evidence, the bones and the grainy footage and all this thing. There's a lot of people, and they occur in a lot of places. Jackie, I'm dying to hear your thoughts.
Honestly, I had never heard the concept that Bigfoot was interdimensional. I had never heard that. And in my head, I'm picturing Scooby-Doo, and I'm just picturing,
here's your Bigfoot guy.
Exactly. Rip the mask off of him,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see them opening up wormholes and climbing in and that sort of thing. But yeah,
That's not how it works, Jackie.
I know. Making a tear in the space-time continuum and all of this different stuff. But yeah, I have to agree on that point. You know, if these things have been around as long as they've supposedly been around, then why aren't we finding skeletons? And if they are primate-like, you know, where's the mother?
Well, right. And yeah. And I mean, it's easier for me to believe in saucers than it is Bigfoots, but I don't know, man. There's a whole big...
They talk about family groups. If you watch these shows.
Big feet.
And what's the greatest show of all time that I recommended to you, Ben?
Was that Shooting Bigfoot?
Shooting Bigfoot. Amazon Prime. Shooting Bigfoot. You're welcome.
Do you mean the man who killed Hitler and killed Bigfoot?
No.
No, I didn't see that. I heard
that
about
one's
that.
actually really depressing.
Oh, no. This one. Okay. Have you seen it?
No.
I told you about it. Okay.
No.
Okay, I told Ben about it.
I'm
and
still watching The
I think him
Punisher.
and his wife agree with my wife's assessment. Okay, I watched this. And this guy, this British guy, makes a documentary on Bigfoot. He goes around the country, Portsmouth, Ohio, other place, and he finds the most incredible cliche hicks you can find and spends time with them. And they don't like him because he's British, and they feel like he's mocking them. And he's and they go on Bigfoot expeditions, and they're like, these couple guys go to the dollar store to load up on sardines and beer, and they're out there playing. They go, he likes music. When you play music, he comes. He goes, listen to him. You can hear him he's calling his children right now. And you see it through the perspective of the. All right. Yeah. You see it through the perspective of the, and also he goes to the guy. A few years back, there was a guy who claimed he bagged one, and he killed it. And he had it in the freezer, and pictures were going around on the internet. It was a big hoax. So he goes to him. He spends time with him. So from the viewer's perspective, this guy is the filmmaker is just finding the most wacko people he can to make this documentary, and it's hysterical. Now, when I watched it, I told my wife, I said, listen, you have to watch this. And so she watched 10 minutes of it, and she goes, Drew, this is a train wreck, but I can't take my eyes off it.
Oh, boy.
And I said, I know. And it has kind of a surprise ending, doesn't it?
It does.
It's kind of a surprise
Now,
ending.
it's called Finding Bigfoot?
Shooting Bigfoot.
Shooting Bigfoot.
And
writing this down.
And my wife's, I think, assessment is pretty correct. Isn't that the way Kim, your wife, kind of felt about it? It's a train wreck, but you can't stop watching.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's kind of hooks you. The one guy had a fractured skull, and when they fixed his skull, they used a sheep skull to fill in. So he is convinced that he now has animal DNA, and he can interact with Bigfoot.
So he can sniff out.
Wow.
He's got wild animal in him. So he's in touch with
this.
nature. And it's fun. They'll hold up these pictures, and they go, there he is right there. And you picture, they'll point out, there's his back, and there's his leg. And you look at it, and you're like, you can't see. And he goes, you're blind if you can't see that squatch right there in them weeds.
That squatch right there?
Yeah. And so the whole thing is like, man. And I know the guys, it's funny because there are a lot of credible people, very credible, intelligent people who see something.
But they want to see something.
Whatever the case may be, they believe they saw it, and they're being honest. And it's a great disservice to them when you get these other people,
with sheep skulls.
I got animal sheep DNA. Yeah.
So here we go. This being funny, but also being serious at the same time.
Yes.
If he existed, wouldn't the crocodile hunter have found him? Crikey!
Yeah.
Look at the size of that one.
Right, he's looking for a Sheila. He is.
Yeah.
Don't dangle the chicken right over his face. Yeah,
I'm gonna wrestle him.
That'd be nice. Well, Bigfoot exists in lore, and that's the other thing people say. Well, the Indians documented, and the Mayans have pictures on their caves. I used to argue with my art teacher about what motivated people to draw certain things on caves and make statues and things like that, because he said, well, this was a deity. and this is a professor. I'm an idiot because I'm disagreeing with a professor. But he said this, like the Venus statue and all this. This would have been a deity because it took a long time to carve it. They only had deer horns to carve with at this time in history, and they made it's human, but it has a wolf's head. And I said, that doesn't mean it's a deity. You know, and some guy's bored, and he said, you know what, this would be kind of cool, put a wolf head on a human body. I go, people still do that. He goes, no, the time it takes to do this. I said, no, I don't agree with that.
Think of all the modern art out there that is just like, what the heck is going on here?
Exactly. Well,
you know?
Yep. And I don't believe just because it exists in lore, because people use that to support their story.
And they had drugs back then too.
That's true. They did. They had powerful stuff they used. And to say, well, they were interacting with a skinwalker or with Bigfoot or something like that, because look, they've documented it in their stories. Well, look at our stories. And in 1,000 years, are people going to go, Godzilla must have been real because they made movies about it?
Yeah, they made a lot.
They made a lot of movies about Godzilla so it must have been something to that. I mean, the human mind loves fantastical things, and we use them as devices to tell stories. But
I do believe in Godzilla. So.
Well, who doesn't? I mean, that's a given. We're not here to debate the obvious. I don't. Man, Bigfoot is tougher for me to meet in the middle on someone with than anything regarding UFOs. I can talk to someone who thinks there is no aliens, there's no spacecraft, none of it exists, it's all garbage. I can have a conversation with them and we're fine. I can have a conversation with someone who is a conspiracy theorist, there's the real, they got an alien, some of them are angels, some of them are demons, they're all in. I can have a great conversation with them. With Bigfoot, some of these people get hostile if you tell them, oh, I don't believe it. Well, I saw one. Well, you saw a bear. And then they start getting, I mean, these guys are passionate about it, like crazy about it. If you look at their online groups, I looked at a few of them before we talked, like their Facebook groups. They say, don't post any picture of this. We do not tolerate this. We do, don't come on. I mean, they're really rigid believers. There's a few that are kind of loose and fun, but.
What about Todd Standing's videos? Did you ever see those?
I don't know. I don't recognize the name.
Well, he's been on Animal Planet and Travel Channel, and there's a Netflix documentary that he did, and I think these can't be. I mean, it's close-up shots. It can't be right. It can't be.
So, what do you mean? He's got close-up shots of Bigfoot? A squatch.
Very close-up shots.
Yeah.
Look him up. I'd like to know.
Todd Standing?
Todd Standing.
Well,
There's
I mean,
Netflix documentary he made.
I will look it up because we're going to have another one of these. Mm-hmm. So what we'll do is we'll take some time off, and then I mean, after this podcast and some time goes by, maybe we'll look into some of the stuff we talked about. Who knows? Maybe one of us will be abducted, which would really get ratings for the podcast.
But yeah, I know.
Yes.
And then,
can we arrange that?
Wink, wink. Maybe someone will get abducted, Kevin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then we'll talk about it on the next one. So, I guess we didn't just give the overall view. So, Kevin, somebody says, Kevin, what's Bigfoot? What do you think of it? Is it real? What's the deal there? What's going on? Boom. You say.
I would say people see what they want to see.
And there is no Bigfoot, right? Is that what you're getting at?
I would say not in North America. So, and that's where it's
But the abominable
seen.
snowman exists.
that's
the
different.
the Yeti.
Different.
Okay. Well, okay.
That's much more likely in like the Himalayas where they have millions of square miles that are on, so.
Okay. All right.
But-
Ben?
I'm not going to come out and say this doesn't exist, but show it to me is where I have to see it. I'm not just going to go.
Yeah, but you got to have an opinion. You got to. I mean, there's got to be part of you that goes, even if it's 51% this way and 49% this way. If you're talking to your wife over coffee in the morning, you're going to be honest with her. You're going to say, "Look, I don't believe it," or you're going to say, I think there's something there. I mean, you got to lean one way.
I don't believe it, but I watch all this stuff. Which,
I do too. I'm the same way. That's why I said I'm looking for there's some truth in everything.
Yeah.
And I watch it, and it's like Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ancient Aliens. There's makes me laugh a lot, but I love it. I like, first of all, Giorgio would be a cool guy to hang out with. Super nice guy. I watch these guys, and I make jokes, and I make fun of them, but every now and then they say something that makes me go,
Yeah.
And they show something that makes you go, and that's the stuff that I look for. That's what's fun. So you still don't lean in.
I would be more inclined to say I believe in Bigfoot if it was British Columbia,
Vancouver.
in the Canadian wilderness. But there was just a report last year of Bald Eagle State Park
Of a Bigfoot?
of a Bigfoot,
Really?
which is what, half an hour from here.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So I'm less inclined to believe that because it's just so many people and hunters in Pennsylvania telling me a hunter wouldn't have shot one.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Jackie, what if somebody asked you, what do you say?
I don't think that they're real. I think there's probably some big furry thing that we just haven't identified yet, maybe,
Yeah,
but not a.
We can go Sheldon on this topic because there are I think the number is 800,000 vertebrate species known, and the estimates of the number that we don't know is higher than that. But the larger you get, the less likely you're going to have something that no one has ever seen or, found a dead body. So
The larger you said?
yeah, 'cause it's like finding a new species of elephant or something like
Yeah.
that. It's like they're hard to miss.
Like I can see,
Right.
I can
So-
see finding a new species of tree frog.
Yes.
Because they're this big. And
Right.
maybe something mutated and now they turn a different color than they did before. But something, the size of Shaq. I love you, Shaq. The size of Shaq.
Yeah.
Just suddenly coming out of the
I
woods.
agree. It's a hard sell.
Yeah.
These guys, these Squatch guys, they get
Squatch.
Well, if you watch some of the shows, they're like, oh, there's definitely been a Squatch here. I mean, they talk about it like it's a wolf or something.
I know.
There's a Squatch den. There's a Squatch been over here. A couple Squatches, and they talk about it like it's a factual thing.
yeah, the
no
trees
proof.
are leaning together.
They go out, go out and hunt them. And then I told Grace, it's got an interesting history because the history is I saw Bigfoot. And the history is everybody saw Bigfoot. And the history is tons of people saw tons of Bigfoots. And then people like the point Kevin made. Well, there's cameras everywhere and we have satellite dishes and we can, not so much. And then people say, well, they're interdimensional. Oh, now they're interdimensional.
Right.
Yep, they're interdimensional. Now then people are reporting seeing flashes. And then people are saying, well, there was a UFO sighting in the area recently as well. And so people are saying saucers are dropped on them all. So they'll do anything they can. So now everything's a Sasquatch. I tell Grace, there's a Sasquatch. If we drive down the street, if it's in the woods, it's a Squatch. If it's in the water, it's a Mersquatch. If it's in the air, it's a Sky Squatch.
There you go.
So everything has a Squatch. It's attached to it some way. It's a Mersquatch instead of mermaid.
You're tying this into UFOs.
Well, no, I didn't tie it into it. The
An
Bigfoot
air
community
squatch,
did.
okay.
They started, as time goes on, they progressively tailor the narrative. And I'm like,
They're cold-blooded too because they don't show up on infrared. Is that,
Oh,
oh
is
no,
that
they
right?
do. No, that's not true. They do.
They do.
no, they do.
Oh.
Well, the people who have them on the FLIRs,
Yeah.
the FLIR cameras, that's forward-looking infrared for you other folks. Anyway, no, they claim they show.
Which, by the way, infrared.
I don't know. You explain this to me. I'm sorry, but some people watching are going to go, "What is that?" It's
Do that.
Look at that. What's that
like
beehive he's
again.
got?
So there you go. We can see you on the screen.
It's a beehive.
JWST is the James Webb Space Telescope, which was just launched on Christmas Day, and it's in its setup stage. It'll take about 6 months to coordinate these 18 mirrors, and then sometime around June it'll start producing some really interesting photos, but it is in the infrared spectrum.
Wow, that just I know we're over, but this is good.
You're okay. You're okay.
I'm sorry. Was someone else I know you, because you told me that the other day. Was somebody else making a point before I interrupt and went on my Bigfoot rabbit hole?
The only thing I was going to say is that I completely agree with you that we're in Pennsylvania
Ben, for those who are listening.
with Ben. That that with the amount of hunters
Yeah.
here, if someone saw a Bigfoot, we'd be eating it right now. We would have Bigfoot jerky. We'd have Bigfoot.
I think people would
backstrap.
think. So, there is one thing I got to say when
What?
people say, when they talk to kids, and so when there are compelling stories, there's convincing ones, and there's people that you hear and you go, man, I don't know, but I believe this person. And sometimes I saw one with a kid one time. He said he pointed a gun, he was going to shoot it. So why did he shoot it? I started thinking about that. When you point a gun at something that is shaped like a human being, there's something instinctively in you, I think, that would really cause you to hesitate from pulling the trigger.
You would hope.
Yeah, it would me. If I pointed a gun, I don't like to think I'd ever have to point a gun at a human being, but even if I pointed a gun at something that had the form of a human being, I know something in me would go, it's not right to point the trigger.
Like a bear standing up.
Well, that's different, because that doesn't look like a human being to me. That looks like a bear standing up. But I'm talking about, the way your head is shaped, the way your shoulders are, your elbows, your frame. If I'm pointing a gun at something shaped like the human frame, I know something in me is going to go, don't pull the trigger, it's not right. And there's going to be that little moral dilemma that happens for a second. And it would be hard for me, to just whip out, just to do a mag dump on them. on something that's
blasting.
Is he dead? I don't know. Ain't taking no chances. Pop, pop, pop.
You'd be rich, though.
You'd be rich, but yeah, if it ended up being your friend in the suit, then I'd be in prison.
The scrap guy's brother.
So I can tie in that as we kind of wrap up.
Okay, I got one more thing to go ahead.
Okay, I do have a friend who has a Chewbacca suit, and he likes to put it on and run past people's trail cams.
That's awesome.
It's the best thing ever. I love it.
That is awesome.
I love it.
I did that to scare some friends one time. We had a woman's wig, and the part that goes on your head, put down to the face and cut eye holes out.
Oh, no.
And it looked like, it was dark, and we scared our friends with it. I was like 16 or 15 years old, and it did. It scared the living daylights out of them. But because I was far away, we were up on a hill, so you could lean over the hill and look down where the fire was in these rocks by the creek. Me and another friend left, came back with that, and they were down there, and we looked out and making noise, and they were really freaking out because they could only see me from here up, and so yeah, that's pretty cool. So anyway, when you said Chewbacca, that reminded me, because that was my intention. I was trying to make a Chewbacca mask out of a wig, and it went south really bad. It didn't look good, but a dirty Squatch, bingo. So, okay, here's the last thing I want to bring up.
Okay.
Has anyone seen the videos of the rover on Mars, the pictures that come back, and all the people that go, what is that? And what is that? And the soil samples that some say have, I can't think of the word. It's something that's only found in soil when there's been nuclear detonations. And I forget what it's called. Anyway, the people that watch, because you can pull it up now from NASA's website and watch the rover and see the pictures, and people see forms and shapes.
People see faces.
Things that look like they were part of structures that are buried in the sand and sticking out of the sand and dirt, and a lot. Like when I watch this with my wife, she is the person looking for the things, and we both are, to be fair. And she'll go, well, look, that's a part of a building, and I say no, because I'm the skeptic. And then people always say this other thing: in nature, there are no straight lines or squares or cubes, and there are. There are squares and cubes and straight lines in nature, and so I don't know though. Some of the stuff in the videos straight from NASA, that there are some things in there that you think that is a statue. I'm sorry, but that is a statue. Have you ever seen those and looked at them? The videos?
I've seen some of the videos, yeah.
No, I mean, have you seen the ones that they look? You don't even have. It doesn't have to be one that's being sensationalized. If you just watch it live, I know it's a delay, but you in the landscape as the camera's moving, you still see. There's still some things that make you go, "What is that?" And I mean, have you experienced that?
I've only seen rocks, because that's probably what I'm expecting to see.
That's all I'm expecting to see too. I'm usually. There, my wife and I are like, it's like ping pong, She goes, that looks like this, and she's not like outrageous about it. I mean, I can see why she thinks that on certain things, but then I'm always I'm looking at it the other way. Like you said, we were talking about people that want to see things. I look at things the other way around. I look at it like there's an explanation for this, and I'm going to find out what it is. I don't look at it like that's automatically something fantastic.
I feel like it's like kids looking up at a cloud and seeing a bunny. Or
I do too.
Looking at a wood grain and seeing faces, creatures, whatever it might be.
For years, there was the face on Mars.
Right.
And it was just a mountain range.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when they take it from different angles, people are still beating on that drum. They still think that.
Yeah, it's just people seeing what they want to see.
Yeah. And what about you, Ben? Have you seen any of that footage?
I've seen it, but I'm with Kevin. I see rocks and dirt. I don't see.
Yeah. If you watch it long enough, I've seen a lot of it. And now and then something will pop up. I'm not convinced that there was a civilization on Mars, but there's definitely some question marks in some of those videos that even I got to say, I'm not saying there was I don't know what it is.
But I mean, even ants can build things.
It's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. There's,
What?
I don't want to go off on a totally different topic, but that explains what you just said. There's a lot of things that happen that have an explanation that is super weird. I was watching a documentary one time on weird things animals do. And there's this little bird. He builds a structure out of sticks to impress the female, right? So here's the thing. If you're going through the woods and you see something that looks like a little building, it's all, you go, gnomes! We have gnomes in the woods. They're real.
The sock monster is real. Underpants gnomes are real.
But here's another one I saw on a nature show.
Underpants gnomes?
I thought
Do you know what they are?
Farts? Oh.
No, when they steal your underpants.
Oh. Disappear in the laundry.
Well, that's a sock. No, anyway.
But
the other one I saw, I was thinking about if you were experiencing this, walking through the woods. My wife and I are watching this show, and this bird takes lizards somewhere in the desert, and this bush with these long thorns, and he sticks the lizards on a thorn. Right?
That's just
so you come across you're walking through the desert, there's a bush with thorns on it and dead lizards impaled hanging off of the thorns.
Wow.
I would think there's devil worshippers out there or something because
that's some talent right there, man.
Yeah, and I thought there's some weird stuff in nature. And that's why I think there's so many things that are, once we find the answers, we go, oh, that's what it is.
Like the island where the birds drop the fish out of the air.
I've heard of birds doing that, but I know there was like one island.
There was a whole thing. Mike Rowe on Dirty Jobs did an episode where they're like, "Don't look up," because literally, if you look up with your mouth open, you're gonna get in your mouth. Love you, Mike.
There's a guy that traps at our place. And he's trying to attract bobcats. So you walk out back in the wintertime just to go for a walk. And you come on to Christmas tree glitter and turkey feathers hanging up in a tree because it attracts bobcats.
Really?
But when you first come
if it's shiny, cat's a cat, man.
When you first come onto it, you think skinwalkers.
Skinwalkers. Yeah.
It's that's the most logical.
Yeah.
But people that do things like that, you do find weird stuff in the woods. And I know that. You come across stuff, you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't even need to be a Bigfoot. You're just like, what is, like I said, is this a ritual? Is this this is something funky here?
I should leave.
Just leave it alone and walk around it because you don't know what's going on. What's your closing thoughts on everything, Kevin? We'll go around the table.
I have none. No thoughts at all.
Kevin has no thoughts.
I don't believe
empty.
you. I don't believe you.
I've expressed almost all of my opinions, so.
Okay. I've never. I'm going to just start doing that. What do you think, Drew? I don't. I'm out.
Have ideas.
My brain is on E right now, so.
I don't believe this stuff, but I watch a lot of it to the point where Kim says, "Why do you keep watching this stuff?" Just because it's funny and it's interesting, and I just would like to see more.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie?
It is interesting, and we're curious, and we're always going to be curious about everything. I mean, there's going to be something new a month from now. Oh, there's murder hornets again.
Oh yeah, that's right. They forgot about them.
Murder hornets, right when COVID hit. So I mean, who knows? Giant dog monkeys.
Chupacabra.
Chupacabras.
Chupacabra squatch.
Chupacabra squatch.
Skinwalkers.
Squatch.
Skinwalkers. Yeah.
Loch Ness monster.
Okay. All right. Now
it
you
could
had
be
to bring
anything.
that up, didn't you? We hadn't talked about that's. You don't ever watch a show with searching for or looking for in the title because
Yeah.
it ends the same way with a guy on a kilt standing on the bank going, "Well, we didn't find this time.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna keep looking. We're coming back next year, and we've got better equipment because." Angus sold him again, so we'll see you next year. Thanks for watching.
Disclaimer to my brother-in-law in Scotland: we are not making fun of you.
No, we'll find. Yeah, I saw somebody else talking about that. Anytime you're in search of aliens,
Yeah.
in search of Bigfoot,
Yeah.
Listen, if they found it, you don't need to watch. They're not going to show it on one of them shows.
Exactly.
Somebody's going to break into the evening news or interrupt TV and go. We found Bigfoot.
Yeah.
It's going to be all over the
I'm
place
not going
right
to wait
now.
for your show.
Yeah, because it's going to come on. Finding Bigfoot. Ooh, maybe they got him this time. Let's watch.
Yeah. Captivating.
They did. Look. Start calling people.
It's Sasquatch.
Yeah, don't try to make it something it's not. Just in search of. Just call it. Here's some film from our vacation.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add other than the obvious about general consensus. I think it's fascinating. Like you've been, I look at it, I watch it a lot. My wife, so does my wife. She likes this stuff. She's not the heckler that I am, and I go, oh, that's ridiculous. You know what that is? And she goes, Drew, why do you watch this stuff? I go, because I'm looking for those little grains of truth in there, the interesting stuff, and it's fun.
Yeah,
it is fun.
It is fun.
Whether you believe it or you don't believe it, it's a fun ride. I mean, it sure is. So I guess that does it for this week. We're going to close out now. So thank you guys for coming on here and talking about this. We'll definitely do it again.
Thank you.
All right.